What's good? What's good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Urban Platform Speaks. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel as you tune in and you check out the content. And with that being said, I want to talk about the quality of basketball that we are getting in the NBA, right? And it recently, I've been kind of pleasantly surprised, although like the NBA, the owners and Adam Silver, they still getting slammed, right, because of the quality and the product that they're putting out there. And also with this thing going on, with they're talking about tanking and stuff like that, a lot of fans really don't appreciate that. Um, I'm one of them, right? But I think the quality of basketball is starting to come back, and not just because you've had a couple dust ups and like with Detroit, who was that? Detroit and Charlotte. Then you had two other two other teams that kind of went at it. But that now the fights you don't want to see, but that level of that level of competition and competitiveness, that's what you want to see, right? You want to see guys who care enough about the game where they willing to get physical and and compete. So that's good, right? That's a good sign for basketball. And I like that. That to me right there is just promising when you talk about it, right? So I was listening to Scat on Scat Attack, and he was talking about how the owners are getting slammed and for putting out a garbage product, and I thought he made some interesting points. So what I want to do is I want to play the audio from his podcast, and then I'm gonna go back and give my input.
Well, the spineless gargoyle masquerading as the commissioner of the National Basketball Association is under fire as of late, as is his entire league, the NBA, for the tanking issues that are swirling around the league at the moment. And it has been well documented this year what several teams have been doing, the tactics which they have been deploying to maximize their lottery pick this season in what is expected to be an absolutely loaded draft coming up in the summer. The Jazz, for instance, have been sitting their entire starters during stretches of games, like the entire fourth quarters of games that they were leading after 3 in. We now have several teams shutting down marquee players for the remainder of the season. Of course, Kyrie Irving, it was just announced recently that he will not be returning now for the Mavericks this year at all, as he continues to allegedly rehab that torn ACL, which it has been over a year now since he did incur that injury. Not surprisingly, speaking of the Mavericks, after they traded Anthony Davis to the Washington Wizards, Davis is now stunningly being shut down.
All right, so with the Kyrie Irving, right, shutting Kyrie Irving down, I don't really have a problem with Dallas shutting him down because number one, Kyrie Irving is older, right? So give him that extra time to recoup. He's an older basketball player, right? And then and I'm seeing that this really is going to be good for Cooper Flag, man, because Cooper Flag is just out there putting on a show, night in, night out. So this is good for him. If Cooper Flag was out there struggling to get his baskets and stuff like that and struggling to score, that's one thing. And somebody told me, I made a video about Cooper Flag, and they was like, well, it's not equating into wins. But first thing you want to do, with Cooper Flag is just get him. I mean, you want to win, but you want to get him to a point where he's comfortable with playing at this level, right? And so you can look at Cooper Flag and tell that he's comfortable. And then next thing you want to do is, they haven't destroyed his confidence. And so now after that, you want to be able to put some really good talent around him based on what his skill set is, right? You want to be able to put talent around him. So I don't have an issue with that. Anthony Davis, the Wizards setting him down. Like, I mean, the Wizards not going anywhere. So, and then Anthony, he can't really stay healthy. He played since Cooper Flag has been in Dallas, I think they say he played like 29 games. So, I'm not even worried about Anthony Davis either. Now, with Utah, with the Jazz setting players down, man, I just think that that's crazy. They got a really good. They picked up a couple good basketball players last year in the draft, and so this year, man, if they get another, I think what they doing is just is out of bounds, it's out of line. What the Jazz are doing, and some other teams are doing the same thing that the Jazz did. They trying to load up, but the thing is that don't guarantee that you're going to, like your team is going to win. That don't guarantee that, like those guys are going to have chemistry and they're going to gel together. That don't mean that your team is going to be like the Golden State Warrior, where they got Clay, Steph, and Draymond and just built around those guys. They can try that, but I don't think it's going to work. They probably more so, in my opinion, probably going to end up more so like the Sixers. But we'll see. We'll see. Let me get back to some more of what Scap's saying.
Commissioned by the Washington Wizards for the remainder of the season. There is still no word on the other big trade acquisition by the Washington Wizards in advance of the deadline. That would be Trae Young, but there was speculation that he was nearing some kind of a return. Yeah, he remains sidelined, and my expectation is that he will not be playing anymore this season either. And then, of course, we have the 1995-96 Chicago Bulls of tanking this season, the Sacramento Kings. Yeah, nobody's going to catch them for the most ping pong balls in this upcoming lottery this summer, because the Kings, who already have the worst record in the NBA, are also shutting down Domantas Sabonis and Zach LaVine for the remainder of the year. We also allegedly have other teams narking on and tattling on other teams, trying to make them play hard, telling on them to the league offices, if you will. It has been reported that the Oklahoma City Thunder reached out to the league offices because they weren't happy with the fact that the Jazz were deploying these tanking tactics.
So look, man, that's it's really bad when you have one team just complaining about a team that is tanking, right? So OKC told on the Jazz for tanking, right? Because they thought that they were tanking. You got to think, if you are OKC and you are a competitive team, you want to play against somebody who's really playing. You don't want to play against somebody like a whole bunch of G League basketball players, because that don't push your players, that don't motivate your players, and it's not good for the fan base, either fan base, the OKC fan base or the Jazz fan base, right? So I'm thinking and I'm predicting that this tanking is not going to work out for the teams that's tanking, and the teams that play hard. I think they're going to come out better, and players, you mess up players' careers, you mess up your fan base when you do that, because if you as a basketball player can't get out there and demonstrate what your talents are and what your skill set is, then they kind of potentially ruining your career, so and if you have a contract that's incentive based and they sit you down, now you don't get to reach your numbers and they messing with your money. So it's crazy, man. It's crazy.
Why is that, you might be wondering? Well, of course, because the Oklahoma City Thunder have the rights to the Utah Jazz draft pick this season, only if, though, the Jazz pick falls outside of the top 5. So Utah has a top 5 protection slated for that selection. And of course, the Jazz are one of the most notorious tankers this year. And yeah, the Thunder don't like that because they want the Jazz's pick. So they reached out, allegedly, to the league offices to complain about it and to make the Utah Jazz try to win games for the remainder of the season.
Oh, wow. See, I didn't even know that either. So the Jazz are trying to tank games, and if the more games they lose, the lower the draft pick that the OKC Thunder get. That's crazy. Yeah, so I didn't know that, man. See, tanking really, yeah, that tanking stuff is crazy.
Is just so utterly rich because the Oklahoma City Thunder essentially tanked their way to a super team. No, the Thunder are not a super team by traditional definitions because they were put together by the appropriate and proper way through the draft. They built this team, but they were only able to do that because they were tanking. First of all, they traded away Paul George and took in every single pick they could possibly get. And then they tried to maximize those picks by not trying to win many games in back-to-back seasons. They also shut down Shai Gilgeous-Alexander for several games during those 2 seasons. So this is just a hilarious display of hypocrisy by the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I didn't know that the Thunder, number one, could get a pick if depending on what the Jazz do. So yeah, man, I just like I said, everybody who tanked is not going to benefit from from this. And so and I haven't really seen a team. I don't think that the Thunder was tanking, but I haven't seen a team really who benefited from tanking. Tanking is not new. That's why people not going to these games, man, because that like it's just becoming more and more obvious that the NBA, really don't care about the fan base or putting a product out there. Anytime you have an owner, Mark Cuban, come forward and say that tanking is good and the fan base understand it, I don't agree with that. Like and so that's why ratings are down, and you have part of the reason why ratings are down and attendance is down because you're not if you want to see somebody really compete, then you can go watch college basketball, and you don't have to worry about those guys tanking for a high school player or anything like that. So yeah, I prefer. I'm gonna just go ahead and start watching something else, man. If these guys don't get it together, but you do have some really good teams in the NBA right now. So, but I'm not checking for the Jazz or who else or the Wizards or any teams like that. So it's just certain teams that people going to watch. Other than that, everybody else can tank. So that's my take on it. Make sure to like, subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to leave a comment. And with that being said, man, I'm gonna check y'all out in the next video. Peace.